Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Well, we use this time to introduce ourselves to each other. My name is Hubbard.
Mike. Mark.
Jim.
George. Patrick.
Paul. Steve.
Bill.
Clint. Steve. Peter. Marty. Peter. Paul.
Sharon.
Buzz. David. Bob. Nicholas. Snake. Butler.
Good morning to you. Is there anyone here for the first time? Welcome. We're happy to stay. Should we turn to be with us? Well, as always, it's my privilege to introduce our illustrious monthly teacher of the Dharma, whose knowledge is just vast, expansive, as the Dharma itself. Jim Wilson.
Right. That's good. You know, like I only like the truth here.
Any more, we're really in trouble. Jim also teaches the Sutra Salon in Sebastopol on Tuesdays, once a month. Would welcome anyone to attend. Jim, welcome.
So it's really interesting to me about technology because now there's this tiny little microphone, this little recorder. There used to be this big box speaker. So I'm hoping that there'll be a chip that I can insert with the entire Buddhist canon. And then I'll be able to... Just kidding. I'd like to begin with the contemplation that we did last month. I think there's enough for everyone. Would you like? So we'll begin with the charge of compassion. I'll read it aloud and everyone comes in together on the line in italics. The charge of compassion. By the caring of Kuan Yin and the laughter of Hotai we meet. In gratitude we meet. By the infinite number of enlightening ones in all the multiverses we meet. In gratitude we meet. By the sun and moon we meet. In gratitude we meet. By the planets and stars we meet. In gratitude we meet. By the wind and rain we meet. In gratitude we meet. By the birds of the air, the beasts of the land, and the creatures of the sea we meet. In gratitude we meet. By the forests and grasses we meet. In gratitude we meet. By the oceans and rivers we meet. In gratitude we meet. By the grace of our ancestors, the benevolence of the lineage, and the kindness of all people we meet. In gratitude we meet. In perfect freedom, in perfect trust, in perfect joy, in perfect love, we meet in the endless circle of compassion. In gratitude we meet. As the unborn one and as the unborn many, as the glittering, radiant, star-filled night and the brilliant sun-drenched day. Dusk and dawn, shadow and light, silence and music, stillness and dance, winter wind and spring blossoms, the newborn babe and the wrinkled corpse, dust and rivers, galaxies and spiderwebs. Numberless the manifestations of compassion, unborn the origin and the end. Endless the tears of compassion, endless the laughter of compassion. And herein lies the secret of the circle of compassion, only that if we do not discover the compassion within, all of our seeking without shall end in vain. For truly, compassion is the whole of the Dharma, from before the beginning of time, throughout all space, permeating all realms, the endless release of the song of compassion. And together we'll recite the three refuges. We take refuge in the Buddha, we take refuge in the Dharma, we take refuge in the Sangha, we take refuge in the enlightened ones, we take refuge in their teachings, we take refuge in our spiritual friends. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. We take refuge in the Buddha, we take refuge in the Dharma, we take refuge in the Sangha. I'll read aloud these contemplations, and once again everyone comes in together on the lines that are in italics. These are the contemplations for everyone. We take this moment to recall, I'm of a nature to grow old, I'm of a nature to become ill, I'm of a nature to die. I must at some time be separated from all that I hold dear. I'm the heir of my own deeds. I'm of a nature to become enlightened. I'm not the only one to grow old. All are of a nature to grow old. I'm not the only one to become ill. All are of a nature to become ill. I'm not the only one to die. All are of a nature to die. I'm not the only one who must be separated from all that is dear. All are of a nature to be separated from all they hold dear. I'm not the only one who is the heir to my own deeds. All are heirs of their own deeds. I'm not the only one who will become enlightened. All will become enlightened. Knowing this, the way appears and the path emerges. I'll read aloud the contemplation on our good fortune. We take this moment to contemplate our good fortune in having a rare human birth. We take this moment to contemplate our good fortune in having a sound mind and body. We take this moment to contemplate our good fortune in having good parents. We take this moment to contemplate our good fortune in all the teachers we have had. We take this moment to contemplate our good fortune in living in a time and place of relative peace and prosperity. Such an auspicious time and place is very rare. We take this opportunity to contemplate our good fortune at encountering the Dharma, the way to liberation, and the cessation of all sorrow. Such a combination of good fortunes is very rare, very difficult to find. Realizing this, we will not waste this opportunity. Realizing this, we dedicate ourselves to comprehending and realizing transcendent wisdom and infinite compassion. You can put this aside now until the conclusion. Are there any questions on those contemplations?
Yeah, obviously I missed last week, and probably the new person. I've never seen this before. So where is this?
I used. Where did they come from?
Or not last week, last month.
Last month, yeah.
What tradition is this? And what is, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. It's a good question. My Dharma journey has taken me through a number of different Buddhist traditions. So these are derived from various widespread practices. The beginning one, the charge of compassion, is meant to awaken or remind us of what I call heart wisdom. So when gratitude is present, a sense of connectedness is present. When we feel gratitude for something, that what that means is that we feel connected to the object of gratitude. The primal insight of the Buddha was the interdependence of all existing things. Gratitude is the golden key to understanding that realization. So that's why it starts with an expression of gratitude, to, oh yes, that's right, that's what the Buddha experienced, even if my experience is very small, like compared to the full awakening of Shakyamuni, it's the same kind of realization. The three refuges are used in every Buddhist tradition. And the Contemplations for Everyone comes from a sutra in the numerical discourses, the Book of Fives. It's a series of contemplations that is used widely. For example, Thich Nhat Hanh uses it in his daily contemplations. In the Book of Fives, the Buddha begins the discourse by saying, these are the contemplations for everyone, monk, nun, layman, or laywoman. Which is interesting because in a large number of the discourses, the Buddha is specifically addressing monastics. In a few of the discourses, the Buddha is specifically addressing lay people. There are only a very few discourses that begin with the Buddha saying, this is something everyone should do. Like taking the 5 precepts is something everyone should do. But these 5 contemplations, I am of a nature to grow old, I am of a nature to become young, I am of a nature to die, I must at some time be separated from all that I hold dear, I am the heir of my own deeds. Those are the 5. The 6th one, I am of a nature to become enlightened, is expressed in other discourses of the Buddha. So I combined it with this one. So that over vast eons and oceans of time, all sentient beings will awaken. So that's the background of this one. But what's the beauty of the discourse from the Book of Fives is that he begins by saying the contemplation is, I'm of a nature to do this, such and such. And then the shift is to universalize that. I'm not the only one to grow old. All are of a nature to grow old. That's really the contemplation. It's like is to understand the universality of our condition. And that's why at the end the Buddha will say, when you know this and you fully comprehend this, the way appears and the path emerges. By path he meant the Eightfold Path. And the contemplation on our good fortune is a distillation from a number of contemplations that I've encountered in different traditions. It's meant to highlight the auspiciousness of our situation, and that this is a rare and wonderful opportunity that we have here. So is that responsive to you?
So I guess last month you introduced.
Yeah. Are there any other questions on these contemplations?
With 5, I'm a nature to grow old. All are of a nature to grow old.
Uh-huh.
That's sort of obvious,
Uh-huh.
isn't it? And we don't like to think about it. Is that why the idea is to contemplate it?
Exactly. Because all of those contemplations, I am of nature to grow old, I am of nature to become ill, to die, I will be separated from all that I hold dear, I am the heir of my own deeds. That last one is particularly unpopular these days. We want to be victims, we don't want to be heirs of our own deeds. But the Buddha spotlighted those because as long as you don't realize your situation, say, take impermanence, as long as you don't realize that you're impermanent, that the people around you are impermanent, then the tendency is to seek refuge in something which cannot actually provide refuge. And that's why that needs to be highlighted. So people seek a refuge in youth, for example. It's very strong in our culture, extremely strong. If people seek a refuge in youth because they think that they can make youthfulness permanent, they think that will protect them mortality or other bad things. It will make them happy. It will make them happy. And these 5 contemplations are meant to remind people that is not a genuine source of happiness. So if you clarify impermanence, if you clarify the actuality of your situation, then you can turn your energy in a different direction. The way appears and the path emerges. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
I wonder, I've been curious about the relationship between Buddhism and its scriptures.
Uh-huh.
Where is there a freedom to, what did you say, distill, to take from one source and another source and add to a source, subtract from a source? You went ahead and, what did you say, you added that 6th component?
I did, yeah.
And what's the tradition around that?
Well,
I'm grateful for it. It sounds wonderful.
My view is that the Dharma is pouring into the West. All the different traditions are pouring into the West, and traditions which have had a particular perspective and are setting up shop right next to other traditions which have a different perspective on the Dharma. And they're interacting here in their original homeland. They would never have had to interact with each other. So I view this as a golden opportunity. And one of the ways I do it is I feel relaxed about that kind of thing. Now, I realize that many people would consider it presumptuous. To say, well, these are the 5 contemplations, I'll add the 6th. But the 6th is taken from other sutras. It's not, I didn't pull it out of the air. So all I can say is that if people find it effective and if they find it useful for their spiritual practice and growth, then I regard it as effective. Let me give an example from Buddhist history. In some traditions of tea ceremony, they regard tea ceremony as a Buddhist meditation. There's a book called Wind in the Pines, Writings on Tea Ceremony as a Buddhist Practice. The Buddha never taught tea ceremony. You're not going to find a sutra about where the Buddha says full awareness of tea. That's not he didn't do it. And they're aware of that. They know that. But tea ceremony offers an opportunity for people to awaken to the dependent origination nature of all things. So, you frame this ceremony, you bring water and heat together, the water boils, you add the tea, and voila, out of the conditions which appear in the ceremony, a cup of tea is produced. That's a really wonderful example of dependent origination, that all things arise due to causes and conditions. So on that basis, it's a Buddhist practice, because what they're illuminating through that practice is part of the core teaching of the Buddha. There's another example from Japan called Kaiho-gyo, where these guys, it's like marathon monks. They go running through the mountains, 50 kilometers, on this route, and they stop quite frequently to do certain contemplations and visualizations, prayers, chants, mudras. And they have this book they carry with them and they know where to stop and they do this. So the Buddha didn't teach that. Right? That's not, he never said, let's go, traipsing out to the Himalayas and do that. So why is it a Buddhist practice? It's a Buddhist practice because it illuminates core teachings of Buddha, like that. So there's that kind of precedent as well. But it depends on being true to the Buddha's vision, of what he was teaching. The Buddha's vision is rooted in the teaching of dependent origination, the Four Noble Truths, no self, those kinds of things. Is that
And also the sutra traditions, I don't know if you have this view on it, but they were creative enterprises of different cultures. I know you may feel that they were all the works of the Buddha, but I think they have later additions.
You think? Perhaps. Let's see, a brief sidebar on the Buddhist canon. I mean, Dharma Jim here, I'm Sutra Man, but right.
Oh, I'm sure we want to see that ass.
Right, Sutra Man. Nothing makes me happier than contemplating a Buddhist sutra. But it's necessary to understand, where this canon came from. For somewhere between 200 and 400 years, there were no written scriptures. The Buddhist sutras were chanted, and there are a lot of sutras where you can see that. The very repetitive nature of the sutras is conducive to chanting and memorization. And so you can spot what I call very archaic layers, when you read the sutras. And then, I don't think the Buddha talked that way, though. You see, so you have you have the Buddha giving discourses every day. After he died, his followers worked his teachings into a memorizable and chantable form. Then, roughly around 200 BC, they began to be written down. Now, there was not just one canon in India. There were at least 6 canons. The reason we know there were 6 is because the Chinese, when they translated things, they were absolutely omnivorous. Everything they could get their hands on, they translated. And there are portions of 6 different Buddhist canons translated into Chinese. One entire canon of the Sebastopol canon, then portions of 5 others, and including some from the Pali, which no longer exists in the Theravada, which is interesting. But all of these canons claim to be the teaching of the Buddha. And as far as I'm concerned, they probably all were. But they had their divergences and their differences in understanding. There's no good archaeological reason to prefer one over the other. And of course, Buddhists continued writing sutras for over 1,000 years. They were churning out sutras. It's very. How could they do this? How could they? Some of the sutras are obviously extremely late, productions. From India, 700 or 900 A.D. That's more than 1,000 years after the Buddha died. The idea, we have an idea regarding text which is very proprietarian. The texts have copyrights, and that sort of thing. And so, you can't violate the copyright. You really have to bracket that and put it aside, because it wasn't a matter of deception. The people kept, producing sutras. They felt that they were speaking from the perspective of the Buddha, or speaking from the perspective of his teaching, minimally, the Dharma. So if you're speaking from the perspective of the Four Noble Truths, if you're speaking from the perspective of dependent origination, then a monk, for example, would be inclined not to claim personal possession over it and sign his name toward it, because he would regard this production as something that was a gift from the realization of the Buddha. all of that's very confusing to us, because, what scholars want to do is find out who really wrote this, and what was their motivation and that sort of thing. But so the Buddhist canon is extremely complex. One of the schools in India was the Theravada, and they wrote in Pali, and the Pali canon has been preserved, because Theravada Buddhism was able to spread beyond India before Buddhism disappeared from India. The Sebastopol canon and the Sebastopol school was the largest school of Indian Buddhism by far, by far the largest and most influential, was translated entirely into Chinese. So of the many canons that existed in India, 2 survived complete down to the present day. The Sebastapol in China and the Theravada Pali in Theravada, like Burma and Sri Lanka. And then you have the Mahayana Sutras, which came later and were expansions or additions to. I regard a lot of the Mahayana Sutras as like commentaries on points that were raised in the Sebastopol canon or points that were raised in the Pali canon, but were unclear. And so a group of monks would produce these things to clarify, or expand on a particular point. So as commentaries, they're very valuable. Whether they're the word of the Buddha, it's probably impossible at this time to determine. But that's also true of the Pali canon or the Sebastopol canon. So what does that mean? It means that when you read the discourses of the Buddha, you have to enter into a relationship with them. Not just take them on, on blind faith, but it's like having a conversation with them. What is this particular sutra expressing? What is this particular discourse trying to communicate? How is this, how is this point being emphasized? Do I agree with that? Because even taking just one canon, like the Pali canon, you find many different points of view expressed on various issues, within that corpus. In fact, I have fun reading it because I've identified what I call at least 6 editors of the Pali canon. I've given them names. So one of them I call Mr. Bitter, and you can spot him because this world is yuck. I hate it. I just want off this bus. There's nothing. And then there's Mr. Nice. And you can spot his discourses because if you get with the program, take the precepts, meditate, whatever, good things will happen to you. So your life will be more peaceful, your life will be soothing, it'll be calmer. You may not become completely enlightened. So if that doesn't happen, you'll be reborn in a celestial domain, which is very cool. And there's another. I call Mr. Analysis. And he pulls out. He likes to tear apart. Categories, stuff like that. So I've identified what I call 6 voices. In the Pali canon. They were probably monks way back. Who wanted to emphasize a particular point. The Book of Twos from the numerical discourses. I would bet money that that's Mr. Bitter, that he was in charge of the Book of Twos. It's just this kind of unrelenting and this yuck, I hate it, everything, And so, once again, how much we can attribute to the actual Buddha is not. It's actually not that important. You can do some sifting. Thich Nhat Hanh, who is one of the few living teachers today who's read both the Pali Canon and the Sebastopol Canon, he has suggested that scholars should compare the Pali recension with the Sebastopol recension and find out which discourses are common to both. Which ones exist only in the Pali and which ones only exist in the Sebastopol. So, and the purpose of that is that what would emerge is a strong consensus from Indian Buddhism about what the Buddha taught that transcended sectarian boundaries. So that would be a worthy project. So maybe the GBF can sponsor that. I think.
Well, you kind of covered this, but I'm just wondering. It seems, well, first of all, it is striking how fluid this process is described, as opposed to Western Christianity, where the scriptures are written in stone and there's no evolution of Christianity since the New Testament, as far as scriptures go. But I'm wondering if there is some kind of screening process so that anybody could write something and call it sutra and say
Right.
it's part of the canon.
There is. There's the tradition. There's the tradition is self-correcting. Even within Pali Buddhism, there have been people who've tried to insert suttas into the canon that have later been rejected. The Pali Text Society has a volume of what are called spurious suttas. And in the Chinese produced volumes of apocrypha. And what happens is, it'll enter circulation, and people will sort of go, well, maybe it is, or maybe it isn't, and then there'll be a time it'll be sort of tested, is it consistent with the Four Noble Truths? Is it consistent with the teaching of dependent origination? So there are traditional criteria at the heart of the Buddha's teachings, that are used and winnowed. There are three major canons in the world today: the Pali Canon, the Chinese Canon, and the Tibetan Canon. So the Pali Canon, many English speakers are familiar with it because there's been a complete translation for over 100 years in the West via the Pali Text Society. Only about 2% of the Chinese canon has been translated into English. This is important for us to understand, because when we generalize about Chinese Buddhism, we're generalizing on just a tiny bit of information. Even very important discourses that the Chinese consider, central, have not been translated into any European language. Even less of the Tibetan canon has been translated. Well, in order to translate, is there a reason? Okay. In order to translate from Chinese into English, say, you would have to have a scholar who wanted to learn Chinese. Okay? So you're getting to a very small group of people. Buddhist Chinese is a subspecialty that's very difficult, because the use of characters in Chinese Buddhism is very eccentric. What Kumarajiva did in his translation project, and also Xuanzang, was many of the Buddhist terms were transliterated, right, instead of translated. So, for example, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi is transliterated in Chinese. It's not translated. So you have a string of Chinese characters which are there for the sound, not for the meaning of those characters. So as you're reading along, you have to develop a vast familiarity with groups of characters that are not there for their meaning, that are there for their sound, which only roughly resembles the Sanskrit sound. So that's why that's an additional barrier. That's an additional, say, 3 or 4 years of study, for a Westerner. So you have a very small pool of people, and Chinese Buddhists themselves don't seem to be. During the 20th century, all their energy was put into preserving their Dharma under the impact of revolution, war, strife, communism, so they didn't have the time or the energy to produce the scholars themselves. The Tibetan situation is roughly similar, in that they were an isolated culture, and when they got shoved into the modernity, against their will, all of their energy was spent in a kind of a preservationist mode. So what has been translated from Tibetan has almost always been translated by Western scholars who have learned Tibetan rather than Tibetan scholars who have learned some European language. But it'll happen eventually. It took, the Chinese, it took the Chinese 600, 800 years to translate, from India. There's no reason why it should take any, less time, for us.
I feel like we're distracting you from the original aim of the talk, but this is interesting to me. If I understood you correctly, well, first let me say, I'm always suspicious of translations because something is lost from the original flavor, meaning, connotation, as opposed to denotation. Which of the canons that you mentioned are still in the language that they were first written down? Is it just the Pali?
None.
None.
The Buddha did not speak Pali.
But people, you said a couple hundred years later, people started writing it down. So given that original source, which of those are still extant in the original language?
I'm sorry, I wish that was a simple question, but it's not, because when Buddhaghosa went to Ceylon, what he found was that most of the material was in Sinhalese, not in Pali. And he back-translated, and we don't know exactly how much, but in the case of the Abhidhamma, it was all the Abhidhamma was back-translated from Sinhalese into Pali. So what you have from the Pali Canon is a transmission of the Pali Canon to Ceylon, which was then translated into the local language Sinhalese. Then a few centuries later, Buddhaghosa goes to Ceylon, back-translates from Sinhalese into Pali. So the Buddha did not, most scholars agree today the Buddha did not speak Pali. What he probably spoke was a language named Magadhi, which is a Sanskrit Prakrit derivative. But, so first you have the Buddha speaking in his language, then you have a translation into Pali, then you have a translation from Pali into Sinhalese, then you have a translation from Sinhalese back into Pali, and then you have a translation from Pali to English. So in the case of the Chinese canon, you have a translation from whatever the Buddha spoke into Sanskrit. The Chinese translated from Sanskrit, except for a few Pali texts, but primarily Sanskrit, into Chinese. Very difficult. The Chinese language and Sanskrit, are, grammatically, everything about them is different. Then, so you have that, and then you have the translation from the Chinese into English. So in both cases, you have at least three layers. So there you are.
Just to add into the mix that there's, during all that time is a linguistic
Drift.
That modern Chinese and ancient Chinese don't have any similarity to each other.
But what people have lost in the West is a living relationship to a textual tradition. And once again, I get to blame the fundamentalists for this, because they look at a text and it's supposed to have a plain meaning. It just means what it says, meaning it means what I say. But we've acquiesced in that. Take the Platonic tradition. So, Plato, wrote these dialogues, and over the centuries, people have found them inspirational and a creative basis for their own understanding, highly varied. Augustine considered himself a Platonist, and so did Plotinus. Plotinus was a pagan, Augustine was a Christian, but they both considered themselves Platonists because they felt that they could creatively enter into a relationship with these works. That's really how the Buddhist canon has functioned in Buddhist history. Not as a proof text, for my opinion, versus your opinion, but as a creative resource which is constantly reinterpreted, constantly reworked, and it's like this wonderful plant that is constantly producing new blossoms. But we've lost that ability to view a text as we tend to think of a text as telling us what to think. Instead of entering into a creative relationship with the text, like having a conversation with a good and wise friend. So if you read the Buddhist Sutras, discourses, eventually you're going to come across a passage that you don't like, which just, you're like, ew, how did that get in there? So if you have a fundamentalist mentality, you're left with two choices. Oh, well, it must be because I'm a deluded, gross human being, and the discourse is right, I'm wrong. But if you have a creative relationship with it, I have friends that I've had for 20, 30 years, and I don't always agree with them. And that's fine. We're still friends. So you have to have that interactive relationship with the canon. And you come across a passage, and you go, you hold your nose and you say, yeah, that's in there. That's really too bad. But there it is. They must have thought that way at one time. And then you ask yourself, well, is that an expression of dependent origination? Is that an expression of the Four Noble? Do I really have to buy into that passage? And that way it becomes creative.
Well, didn't I think you paraphrased what Buddha himself said? Don't take my word for it, seek for yourself.
Yes.
So,
And that appears in quite a number of the discourses. Quite a number of the discourses.
To open the door to
right.
that sort of thing. Anyway.
Don't just believe what I say because I say it. He was very open to investigation of his views. Don't believe just because I say everything is impermanent. Don't believe it. Investigate that. Try that.
We have a few more minutes. I know Paul, you've been wanting.
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. Oh,
well, I had a question on a different, going back to the contemplations, which is I don't feel like I'm of a nature to become enlightened, and that so that the first five seem like yes, those are my nature.
But there's a kind of a leap on the last one. So. The great Chinese synthesist Jia, who was the founder of Tiantai Buddhism in China, he developed a view which he called 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. And I won't go into the full complexity of it. It's really beautiful, but it's huge. So think of different kinds of human mind. The mind of anger, the mind of greed, the mind of delusion. So there are standard 6 realms in Buddhism. The hell realm, the hungry ghost realm, animal realm, human realm, the realm of fighting spirits or deities. And I always say, think of Greek gods, and you've got a real good beat on that one. And then the 6th one is the realm of devas and celestials. So if you, what Jia did is he pointed out that the hell realm is the realm of anger, hatred. It's like when we experience hatred, that's the hell realm. The hungry ghost realm is the realm of greed, insatiable greed. When we experience that, we're in the realm of the hungry ghosts. The animal realm is the realm of fear. The animal realm is dominated by fear. Fear of being eaten, fear of being chased, fear of being, so when we're in that consciousness, when we're dominated by that consciousness, we're in the animal realm. The human realm is the realm of, I can't remember exactly how Jia put it, dissatisfaction, angst. And the fighting spirits realm, that's like the warrior realm. like when we're going to go out conquest, and the celestial spirits realm is everything is fine. Like it's just, it's the, when we're feeling. Now, that's standard. What Chogye did is he added 4 additional realms. The realm of the Shravaka, or the Arhat, the realm of the Pratyeka Buddha, the realm of the Bodhisattva, and the realm of the Buddha. And he said, every human being has these 10 consciousnesses all the time. They sort of shift, dominate. So the consciousness of the Bodhisattva is when we are motivated to assist others. That is the presence of the realm of the Bodhisattva. Now, what does it mean to say that everyone has the seed of Buddha consciousness within them? So what does it mean to be a Buddha? It means to have insight and awareness of the interdependence of all existing things. When you experience that, that is the consciousness of the Buddha being present. And all people do experience that at some time. When the sense of isolated self falls away, that's the realization of the Buddha consciousness within. In a number of discourses, the Buddha says that I am teaching for the welfare of all beings. I am teaching for the welfare of the world, So when you bring to others that understanding of the interconnectedness of all things, why do you do that? You do that out of compassion and concern for others, and that's also the presence of one's Buddha nature, So it is possible to understand why all beings will become enlightened, because the presence of that awareness is there, in our consciousness already. What's necessary is to recognize exactly what that means. So it's not vague. It's a specific experience. Then one cultivates that experience. Eventually, one stabilizes that experience. A sense of separation falls away, and after 4 million incalculable eons, one is born. But be patient. What awakens, what becomes a fully enlightened Buddha. After many. I'm very relaxed now about this eons of time thing. I finally became relaxed about the Buddha's teaching about that. Life after life after life. So that's my response to your question. Is that helpful? A little?
Okay,
no,
a little.
Okay.
I'll just think
That sounds like a wonderful preface for another talk.
Another talk, another time? Well,
Jim, we are grateful.
All right.
Wonderful.
Thank you for your questions. I really appreciate it.
Very exciting discourse.
Should I close with this?
Yes, if you would help close this with that. You want to do that after announcements?
Okay.
Yeah.
Good idea. Good.
So this is an opportunity for announcements about our life together. Sound good?
There'll be a potluck at my house on Masonic Avenue on September 20th, I think it is, or 21st. It's a Saturday. So everybody please come and bring food. Last time I had a potluck, 2 people came, so I'm hoping for a better turnout this time.
Lassiter, and you talked to him if we would like to do this at some point. One of the things I'd like to do is get more help for the host. People kind of volunteering, and in a way to make sure that people are there, because it's a wonderful thing, to kind of help the host maybe clean up afterward, and make sure there's some money available for it.
There is parking at my place. It's usually not too hard to do.
Well, talk to me if you're interested in doing it.
Yes, I can sure. I believe I can.
Sure.
Is Kai here?
He went to make some
okay.
photocopies of an announcement about the
Great.
retreat.
Okay, so I'm going to announce that there's GBF is having a retreat in September, and what's the date? I should know.
September 5th through the 7th.
September 5th through the 7th. So it'll be at Vajrapani, and I'll be giving talks, just really wonderful talks. And Raja Corliss will be there, and he will be giving talks as well, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Other announcements?
Who's the host?
The host is Kay. Kay is off doing a task, so I was going to fill in for him, encourage the Sangha to contribute to the Dhamma bowl. It's the purple bowl out there. It's hungry for your generosity. It's for a $5 gift, if not more. Grateful. Also, there'll be refreshments and for fellowship, and if anyone's interested in gathering for a lunch afterwards, we will kind of congregate out towards the doors. And I guess wash your own teacup, please. Anything else? Okay.
Turn to page 6. Together we'll recite Contemplating Forgiveness. Whatever harmful, negative, or destructive deeds I have done, through body, speech, or mind, intentionally or unintentionally, I do hereby repent of those deeds. I do hereby forgive myself for those deeds. I do hereby release those deeds to the understanding and compassion of the enlightened ones. Whatever harmful, negative, or destructive deeds others have done to me, through body, speech, or mind, intentionally or unintentionally, I do hereby forgive those deeds. I do hereby release those deeds to the understanding and compassion of the enlightened ones. I'll read aloud the contemplation on kindness and caring. With every act of kindness, the way grows clearer. With every act of caring, the way grows smoother. We rejoice in every act of kindness, great or small, near or far, known or unknown, ordinary or extraordinary. We rejoice in every act of caring, great or small, near or far, known or unknown, ordinary or extraordinary. May kindness and caring blossom within us and within all people. May wisdom and compassion blossom within us and within all people. May gratitude and serenity blossom within us and within all people, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, life after life, as we attain the unexcelled peace, serenity, and bliss of Nirvana. Together, the song of heart wisdom. May all sentient existence be well and happy. May all sentient existence be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May good fortune fill all the days of all the lives of all sentient existence. May all sentient existence dwell forever in the limitless realm of the ever-present peaceful heart and serene mind. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. The hindrances are inexhaustible. I vow to extinguish them all. The teachings are innumerable. I vow to learn them all. The way of the Bodhisattva is unattainable. I vow to attain it. The way of the Buddha is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Whatever merit we have earned since beginning this time, We do hereby freely offer this merit to all sentient existence. Whatever merit we have earned from this morning's contemplations, we do hereby freely offer this merit to all sentient existence. Thank you.
Very great.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.